Now, here's the thing. Is it gamesmanship on Lynch's part to say that it's a game-time decision? Because guess what?
They're going to prepare for it, yeah.
The Giants are saying Saquon Barkley is a game-time decision. He's supposedly out 3 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, I don't get that. What's that?
Yeah. What is that?
Yeah, it's like, oh, he's questionable, but he's also out for 4 weeks. It's like, so he's not playing. It's like, no, he's questionable. It's like, what? You shooting him up with some wonder drug? Like, why would he? I mean, and that's another thing. If Saquon Barkley isn't playing, this Giants team is significantly worse. I mean, I think
he's 40% of their offense.
No, yeah,
I was looking at some of the numbers.
Yeah, you could make
he's 40%. He accounts by himself for 40% of their touches since the beginning of the 2022 season. 40%.
Yeah, I mean, you can easily make the claim that he is more important than Daniel Jones to this team. I mean, who else do they have? They have Jalen Hyatt, who's like a good speedster rookie. Yeah. They have Isaiah Hodgins, who's a big, tall possession receiver. But I mean, that's like, I think you could compare that to like Danny Gray and Juwan Jennings. It's like if you were the 49ers and you were throwing out there Danny Gray and Juwan Jennings as your like 1-2 receiving group. I mean, those are good receivers, but they're more like third, fourth guys, like how they are in the 49ers. These are like their guys. I don't really see how like this team has really a shot offensively on the 49ers, other than it's a Thursday night game.
I don't think they well, I mean, they do have a shot. They got a shot. Daniel Jones can run.
Yeah.
He was great in the second half. You know, I can see why people were so enamored with Daniel Jones. He's 6'5", he's 225. The guy throws a great ball, and he's big and he's fast. And he can really run. And I thought him running against the Cardinals in the second half was one of the main reasons they came back in that game. But I mean, you know, come on. I mean, other than, you can't let him run. You can't let him run. You can't let him get loose. Basically, there's 2 or 3 things you got to do in this game. You can't let Daniel Jones run. You can't let Hyatt get down the field. He's the deep threat. And then you got to cover Isaiah Hodgins, the gigantic wide receiver, and Darren Waller, the big tight end. And you got to those guys have great hands, great ball skills. You got to be draped all over those guys. And you got to really hit those guys. So if you do that, I don't see any way they lose. The only way they lose is if they were -2 or -3 in turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the path to the victory for the Giants. Just some background. Purdy's 9-1 straight up, and 7-3 against the spread.
Not only that, I was looking at what he does at night. He's played in 2 night games. He's 2-0. He played in 6 night games in college. He went 6-0.
Yeah.
So in all these
on the
games,
other hand,
he's
Daniel
undefeated.
Jones
is 1-11.
1-11 straight up in night games, which is the worst of all time with at least 5 starts. The closest is Andy Dalton, who's 6-21. But Daniel Jones has won 1 night game. Purdy's covered 7 of the 10 games he's played in. One of the games that he didn't cover in was last week, where he basically did cover until Sean McVay decided to kick a field goal for no apparent reason. The Niners are 10-point favorites in this game. I mean, that's the line, but
is it 10 or 10.5?
I mean, it's fluctuated. But in terms of the 49ers actually losing this game, the only real angle I can come up with is just the fact that Daniel Jones is an elusive quarterback. If you go back to last year, the 49ers lost to these quarterbacks: Justin Fields, Marcus Mariota, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, and Jalen Hurts. So if those guys have anything in common, it's that they're a little bit more dynamic with their legs. So if the 49ers have any trouble in this game, I believe it would probably be due to Daniel Jones. What do you think?
Yeah, it's Daniel Jones running, and it's a little bit of Waller and Hodgins. Is that his Hodgins?
Yeah, Isaiah Hodgins.
Isaiah Hodgins, yeah. So Waller and Hodgins, those guys are key. You can't let those guys get loose. I mean, I watched the Arizona Giant game this morning. Arizona led 20-0 at halftime. Giants won the second half 31-8. It was truly a tale of 2 halves. First half, it was all Cardinals behind Joshua Dobbs, who's now 0-4 as a starter. James Conner ran for over 100, and he ran at will in the first half. Jalen Thompson had an interception on a Daniel Jones ball to Saquon Barkley that Barkley tipped up into the air. And New York played horribly in the first half. There were drops. They were terrible penalties. They had 12 men on the field one time, and the head coach went bananas. There was shoddy tackling, missed tackles, one turnover. Arizona averaged over 5 yards a carry running the ball. Then second half comes around. First play of the second half, Daniel Jones, 58-yard bomb to Jalen Hyatt on the first play of the third quarter. And now it didn't go for a touchdown, but it set up a touchdown. And, basically, if you said, what was the difference first half, second half? Arizona had no explosive plays in the second half. Giants had a bunch of explosive plays. And there's three guys on this Giant defense that you have to account for. There's Bobby Okereke, who, when he was at Stanford, he was Okereke. I know because I did the pregame show and I had him on the show. Now I believe he's going by Bobby Okereke or something like that. Okereke or something. I mean, he's totally changed the pronunciation of his last name. But he is a phenomenal coverage linebacker. He had 8 tackles and a tackle for a loss. Dexter Lawrence, the man in the middle, the nose guard, is just an absolute dominant run defender. You can't run in the A-gaps with Dexter Lawrence. And then this corner from Pittsburgh, Jason Pinnock, they used him as a blitzer off the edge in a lot of run blitzes for Wink Martindale. And Pinnock had 13 tackles, 3 tackles for loss. He was amazing. And that was it. The Giants couldn't get any pass rush at all in the first half. And in the second half, they started to get some pressure on Dobbs by blitzing, and they just blitzed the hell out of him. Now, the reason I love the Niners big in this game, the Giants' offensive line is bad. Andrew Thomas is probably their best offensive lineman. He's got a hamstring. He was inactive last week. I don't think he's playing.
He's out.
Bren Bretterson, the Michigan kid, is coming off a concussion. He had a second. The backup that came in for Thomas, Joshua Ezeudu, he struggled mightily. He probably had 3 or 4 penalties. He was overwhelmed. Saquon Barkley went out with an ankle injury in the fourth quarter. As I said, he's almost their entire offense. But yeah, New York, Martindale just blitzed the hell out of Arizona in the second half of the game. And by the way, it was the Giants' biggest comeback since 1949. How about that? And for Arizona, they've lost now 6 in a row at home. But yeah, it's if the Niners can contain Daniel Jones, he threw for 300 yards, he ran for 59 yards on 9 carries, he had a 14-yard touchdown run. If they can contain Daniel Jones, they're going to win this game. What a year for New York, by the way, Kev. They get drubbed in week 1 by Dallas 40-0. They were down 20-0 at halftime to Arizona. So they literally got outscored 60-0 before they scored any points. But they do have Darren Waller and they do have Isaiah Hodgins, and they're 2 big, dependable wide receivers. So don't let Hyatt get deep. Absolutely cover the hell out of Waller and Hodgins. Don't let Daniel Jones run. Don't turn it over. And if the Niners haven't been turning it over under Brock Purdy, if they can do those things, they're going to win this game. They're going to win this game. And the other thing that stood out here, the Niner D-line should dominate. Jones has been sacked 10 times in the 2 games. That's the second most in the entire NFL. Also, the Niners have a strong run game. New York has allowed 273 rushing yards in their first 2 games. That's the 7th most in the NFL. They're averaging 136 on the ground against them. And New York's got no picks at all in the first 2 games. And they've got 2 rookie corners, Trey Hawkins III and the Maryland kid, Deonte Banks. And Banks is big, but 2 rookie corners. I personally think the big matchup for the Niners is Juwan Jennings against Adoree Jackson, the slot corner. Jennings is huge. Jackson's tiny. I think they can make plays on that all day. The wild card factor in this game, in my mind, is Kayvon Thibodeau. New York has 0 sacks in the first 2 games. They were 13th in the NFL last year in sacks. So eventually they're going to start sacking the quarterback. Eventually Thibodeau and Ojulari are going to come burning off the edge. Ojulari's out. Thibodeau has been quiet. To me, he's the wild card. They keep him quiet. There's no way they lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Niners match up and have advantages in pretty much every situation. I think you're right. I mean, I know Thibodeau has been kind of underwhelming so far, but Dexter Lawrence going against whoever he matches up against, I know Burford's been struggling on the inside, so that might be a key matchup to watch to see if he gets pressure. But yeah, I mean, this Giants team, I mean, they allowed over 100 rushing yards to James Conner last week in the Arizona Cardinals' terrible offensive line. The Niners are coming in with the most rushing yards in the league, so it sets up to be a dominant game for the 49ers. I'd say that another reason why it may not be dominant is just because it's a Thursday night football game, and they're not making any adjustments. They barely have time to, they barely have time to implement any plays really this week. I mean, playing on Thursday is so much different than playing on Sunday. It's usually a sloppy game. The unders usually cash. I mean, I think the over-under's at like 46 or something. I think it's really low. I got to check that. But usually these games are pretty sloppy. I think if there was any team, though, that could just roll out of bed and kind of dominate, it would be the 49ers or, the Chiefs or the Eagles. So, the Niners are one of those elite teams, and I think that they'll probably come out of this game with a win. I don't know if they'll cover, but I think they actually have a decent shot to, just because of how weak this Giants team is.